Hello Magic players, this is Jumbo Commander and I have a little bit of a different deck tech for you today. This is a little bit streamer style. Right now we're looking at my tappedout.net page, that's me, Jumbo Commander, and this right here is Breya Ethereum Shaper. We are going to take Breya's Commander 2016 pre-constructed deck that you can buy at any local game store or big box store, and we're going to upgrade it on a budget. We're going to get the precon, all the upgrades and some sleeves, all for under $100. So if you look at this deck tech, it's pretty long. There's a lot of cards here. And the reason why is because I've included every single card that's in the precon and all of my additions. Everything that has an A next to it is a card that I have added to the deck. And over here in the sideboard, all of these are cards that I've cut from the pre-constructed deck. It doesn't mean that these cards are bad, it just means I needed some room to cut some cards. So let's take a look at what cards I added and find out what strategy I'm going to go with for Breya Ethereum Shaper. Well, Breya is white, blue, black, red for a 4/4 legendary human, and she comes with two 1/1 blue Thopters. She's got a really great activated ability. 2 and sacrifice 2 artifacts to deal 3 damage to a player, give a creature -4/-4, or gain 5 life. This makes Breya very combo-tastic. And if you're interested in a combo-centric deck that's very powerful, you can go ahead and click on her, and that'll take you to a video I did previously that has tons of combos that can break Breya. But in this deck tech, I'm going to be focusing instead on those Thopters she creates. That's right, we finally have a Thopter Queen, and so I'm going to go wide with a ton of Thopters, and I'm going to make them relevant. Now, I know some of you are skeptical right now that I'm trying to make a token strategy not using green, the color of Overrun and Craterhoof Behemoth. But trust me, Breya's going to be super cool. The first thing we need to do is get some Thopters onto the battlefield. How about Angel of Invention? It creates 2 servos. Alright. It's the crappy cousin to the Thopter, but at least it's an artifact creature. And hey, this guy can pump your other Thopters. Great. Let's go down to a very important card, Hangerback Walker. Token strategies are particularly susceptible to board wipes, and Hangerback Walker is that insurance policy we need to make sure we can keep attacking after we've been disrupted. We got a few other cards that can make some servos. How about this Master Trinketeer? You can sink some mana into making servos. Alright. How about this? Piet and Kieran Nalaar come with 2 Thopters. Alright, putting more Thopters on the battlefield. And a relevant activated ability. Piet Nalaar only comes with 1 Thopter, but has a little bit of pump built into her. Okay. Thopter Engineer comes with a Thopter and gives your creatures haste, all your artifact creatures. Still, giving them haste can be really powerful, because it can let you create a bunch of artifact dudes and then immediately swing. And Whirler Rogue puts 2 Thopters onto the battlefield and gives you a little bit of flexibility, giving something unblockable. I want to go back to one of the best cards for creating Thopters, Sharding Sphinx. Whenever an artifact creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may put a 1/1 blue Thopter creature token with flying onto the battlefield. So this can get huge. We keep attacking with Thopters and creating more and more Thopters. That's what we want to do with this deck. Flood the board with Thopters. Thopters aren't that great unless we make them relevant. We can make them relevant by pumping them up, making them sort of like angels instead of Thopters. So this angel can give your other creatures +1/+1, making your Thopter a little bit more relevant. Brutal Horde Chief can drain your opponent when you attack and influence creature combat, making those little Thopters go to town. Chief the Foundry pumps up your guys as well. Going down, you know what? They actually include a lot of really good pump in here on their own. Jorkadine can just pump up your creatures like crazy if you got a few Thopters on the battlefield. And where is it? We got a cool inclusion with Master of Ethereum, which also pumps your artifacts and can make himself really big. Very aggressive, cool cards. But let's keep going. This Master Trinketeer also pumps your servos and Thopters. One of the best inclusions we have is Mirror Entity. This is a game ender. Just a few Thopters, and you sink a little bit of mana into Mirror Entity, and they can become huge threats. Another huge game-ending card is Puros God of the Forge. Every creature that enters the battlefield deals 2 damage to each opponent. That damage is going to be huge. And you know what? This needs to be an impactful card because it is the most expensive one I've included in the deck. Close to $9. Peripherals is well above the normal budget we have for a card. But this one is particularly important. It makes each Thopter relevant, and if we've built out a team, it has an anthem built in. Want 2 in a red, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. You can pump a lot of mana into this too, man. Peripherals is a house. Definitely worth the money that we put into him. All right. So we found a few ways to make our creatures a little bit more relevant while they're attacking. But I want to make them relevant in a little bit different ways as well. I want to be able to draw some cards off of these creatures dealing damage. How about Deep Fathom Skulker? Whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. See, you need to be able to cycle through this deck because we have to flood the board with a lot of little creatures in order to gain our advantage. So we need to gain our card advantage back again. So Deep Fathom Skulker is going to be really important. Also, Grenzo Havoc Razor can give us some card advantage as well. Going down the list, we also have Padim, Council of Innovation, which can give us some card draw every single turn. How about Coastal Piracy? It can deal, whenever our creatures deal damage, we draw cards. Thopter Spy Network. If we get one dude in, we get to draw a card. And where's that? Biden of Thassa. Okay, great card. We can force our opponent's creatures to attack, and we can draw cards when we hit our opponents. Now, one more card draw spell that kind of transitions us to another category we have, Outpost Siege. Outpost Siege can let us consistently draw cards turn after turn after turn, but also has the sort of hidden ability. Dragons, whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, Outpost Siege deals 1 damage to target creature or player. If we're flooding the battlefield with Thopters, and by the way, we have a sacrifice outlet built into our commander, okay, we might want this sort of effect to be able to ping our opponent whenever something dies. In fact, we have down here a more vicious version with Vicious Shadows. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, you can have Vicious Shadows deal damage to target player equal to the number of cards in that player's hand. This is another strategy we have. We might get stopped from dealing damage in combat to our opponents, but if we have a way to sort of drain them out with effects like this, it can be very powerful. Again, with a sacrifice outlet on our commander. There's a few more. Butcher of Malakir also can control the board by sacrificing creatures, as well as other effects like that, like suggest Dictate of Erebos, because Grave Pact is a little bit expensive. Dictate might be a little bit more in a budget range. There we go. But other creatures that take advantage of your team dying, how about Disciple of the Vault, which can drain your opponent? Or where is it? Marionette Master. Okay, Marionette Master can be great. Not only does it make servos, but I don't want to use it that way. I want to have it be a 4/6 and then drain our opponents for 4 every time an artifact goes to the graveyard. Okay. These cards give us all reach, so we can deal a lot of damage to our opponent, even if we can't get through combat damage. Another area we want is a little bit of control. That's why I have opposition in here to tap down maybe a few flyers so we can get damage in. Cyclonic Rift can again get blockers out of the way. Washout can all get blockers out of the way as well. There's not a lot of control elements in here, so we're going to rely pretty heavily on a lot of these things. And hopefully Breya can be a little bit of control herself, sort of dealing damage to players, gaining some life, giving the creature -4/-4. Another card that I want to mention in terms of controlling is this value card that I had to mention. It's a Eldrazi Displacer. Eldrazi Displacer can turn mana into Thopters. So if we blink a lot of these guys, we blink Angel of Innovation, we get 2 servos. We blink Baleful Strix, we get a card. Okay, we blink Pienkir Noir. We blink our commander and we get 2 Thopters. Okay, Eldrazi Displacer is going to be great, and with Ashnod's Altar, we can go infinite with a lot of our cards in this deck, just constantly generating mana and blinking things over and over and over again. One more sort of control card that I added, Spine of Ishsa. It's slow, it's inefficient, but we have a way to sacrifice it and get it back. So this sort of recurring value is something we really need to pay attention to. So that's the deck. Make Thopters, make them relevant, have some reach to be able to drain our opponents out, and have just the tiniest bit of disruption so that we can finish out the game. There's a few cards over here in the maybe board, mostly because they're too expensive. Arcbound Ravager's $40. Ugh. But he allows you to move counters around and also sort of like dodge blocks to be able to move damage all around the table. And also has an instant speed free sacrifice outlet for some of these more vicious sacrificing strategies. So Arcbound Ravager is great if you just happen to have one, but $40. Elish Norn, $18. But this is a super anthem for your Thopters, makes them very relevant and can wipe your opposing team. If you like that sort of draining ability of the brutal Horde Chief, then you might like Hellrider. Very inexpensive, but I felt had you attacking a little bit too much. If you wanted to lean towards a more aggressive deck, Hellrider could be a very good inclusion. I also put Smokestack in here. It could very easily go in this deck. I felt like this version was a little bit more attacking, but if you want to just slant it a little bit more controlling, you know, you could take out some of the more aggressive cards over here, and you can put in things like Smokestack, and that way you can sacrifice a Thopter, and your opponents are sacrificing something really relevant. Steel Overseer is a great anthem. It's $12 though. I mean, it's so great too, because it's 2 mana, it's an artifact creature, and it puts a counter on each artifact creature you control. I might try and find a way to fit this into the budget of the deck, but it's just a little bit more expensive. And as far as our expensive card goes, Peripherals is so much more powerful than Steel Overseer. So I think we spent our money in the right spot. I also put in Deseret Agent of Bolas. This guy is $20, but he can draw you into artifacts. This deck is missing a little bit of card draw, but also it can instantly change one of your Thopters into a 5/5. That's a huge flying dragon that your Thopter just immediately becomes. So he makes a lot of stuff relevant very quickly. Alright guys, let's break down the budget for Breya. So we start off our budget with $100. The first thing that we need to do is buy that precon, $35 at your local game store. That gets you a ton of cards and really a spectacular deck. Now, let's put $45 in upgrades. That's right, we only spent $45 on all of these upgrade cards. And some of the most expensive cards that we bought was Eldrazi Displacer, close to $5. But again, very valuable, worth the money, can work in a ton of different strategies. Next, Cyclonic Rift, close to $5 as well. This is a staple in Commander, which is why it costs so much. Ugh. And then we have Peripherals. I did a lot of these were light play. Some of them were near mint. They were all through TCG players, so the prices are pretty competitive. I know that in the video before I said close to $9. I got this Peripherals for $7.50, which I think is a great deal. So if you take into consideration all of these cards, that's almost $20 of our budget, closer to, you know, $16.50. But that's a huge portion of our budget right there in these 3 cards. But I think that these guys are such high impact plays, and that they're so good. If you get bored of Breya, which I don't think you will, but if you do, these cards can easily be transitioned to other decks. So I think that they're great cards to invest a little bit of money in. Last but not least, we're not just going to start playing this deck unsleeved, so let's spend $11 on some Dragon Shields. I personally use KMC Hypermats, but they don't come in denominations of 100. They come in 80. Ugh. So maybe some Dragon Shields can actually be purchased for $11. In total, that's $91. We have $9 left over. Let's buy some tacos or something like that. I don't know. No, we're probably just going to spend it on more Magic cards. That has been the deck tech for Breya Thopter Queen. Hopefully you like this new style of deck tech. If you did, please let me know. If you like my channel, I'd love for you to become a subscriber so we can hang out and talk more about Commander. I'll see you later, guys. Bye.